Hi everyone, thank you for joining me once again. Today we're going to talk about the framing of women within the biblical stories and the legends coming after that and what it teaches us. In the biblical stories, we sometimes hear the stories of different queens: Atalia, Ma'acha, Jezebel. And the thing is that those women were considered to be characters that are framing in a way which is less than positive. And this is a very complicated thing to analyze, and I'll explain why. In order to understand exactly who they were, you need to compare it and back it up with archaeological excavations that you find in different places in the area. For example, King David and the dynasty of the House of David was mentioned in a tomb that they found in a different place, and this is how you can talk about them. Now, those queens, if they existed, they were probably powerful comparing to other women in the area and during the time when they lived, and they tried to measure up to the men, especially the rulers. Also, they could have kept the feminine worship, worshipping the goddess. This is something that the Bible does mention. And the fact that they were powerful and worshipping goddesses was something that represented femininity that was problematic for the men who wrote the later on scriptures of monotheistic religions. So they framed them in a way that presented them as bad. They say that they killed all of their political allies and they worshipped foreign idols. This is how they presented it. Now, were they really bad? We don't know. Maybe they had to fight political rivals. Maybe men who ruled the area did the same. Is there a chance that they worshipped the goddesses? Probably so, because they were women in a certain position, so they needed some kind of a backup from the divine characters to back them up as royals. So it makes a lot of sense that as women and queens, they worship the goddesses. Those two things are considered to be problematic. So they're being framed as certain women, type of women that we don't want you to be those women. We want you to be, for example, like the mothers, that many of them are very silent. We talked about Sarah in a previous video, and I recommended you more to read more about her character and why do they think that she was some kind of a leader or a leader of a tribe or perhaps a local queen, and they did everything they can to her the status and what she represented. Perhaps they did the same for the Shekinah. And this is interesting because when you are being presented with a certain type of woman they want you to be, then all the others that are migrating from all the times representing different stories needs to be framed in a way that will teach you what you shouldn't be. Even Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron, she was a very important prophetess, and she kept on staying alive in the memory of generations to come. And they said such good things about her, and they saw her as this figure of legend. Even she that carried all of those positive stories in the Bible, when she is criticizing the acts of Moses and Aaron, she is being punished. In later on writings, the Talmud, the Gemara, and different midrashim, legends coming after the Bible, we hear about women that are usually the wives of sages. Ima Shalom, Mother Shalom, Yalta, Bruria, a woman called Cheruta and Chova, which means probably mandatory and freedom. We're not entirely sure what they represent because they haven't wrote a lot about it, but those women usually had a lot of knowledge in the Torah, so they're being represented as those that are arguing with the man, but in a good way because they have so much knowledge and they are part of the society, so this is a good thing. But when many of them are trying to overcome the power of the husbands, suddenly something happens to them. Even later on, queens in the time of the Romans, such as Berniki and Shlom Tzion, were queens that were complicated. They were great in what they did here, but the relationship with the Roman Empire was complicated, even though they saved a lot of people here and took very good care of their people. So the framing of women from ancient times is complicated. We don't know what is true and what is false. We don't know why they tell us the stories that they do, and perhaps there was a totally different story that never reached us. If you know stories about women that were reframed, but we have so much to learn from them, do share them with us. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.